All right, challenge A. We are on the final stretch of science fair. We're almost done. We're in our final two components, which is our project board and our actual presentation. So I wanted to do a little video and just talk about it. So far you should have your journal or your lab journal. Now this is ours. I put a little title in the front, and then I also tabbed each of my sections. I used my table of contents and just went down and made little tabs. Do you have to do that? Absolutely not. Can it just be straight up lab journal? Sure. I just happened to like tabs and I thought it would be nice. The color complements my board, so I thought it'd be a nice touch. And then I have my paper and I have my plan. So these are the three components I will have out for the judges to look at. And then I have a few other things that are just part of the display itself. I thought it would add a little interest, and it'll be something I talk about in my presentation. Now, what I will tell you is making your presentation board and your presentation are kind of like putting on your socks and shoes. You don't really want to put your shoes on first. You want to put your socks on first. This board, this is your socks. Your presentation is your shoes. Your presentation follows your board. Now, I grabbed out my Challenge A guide over here just to show you that the only two times, well, other than in the weekly assignments, that the project board is even mentioned is on the schedule, and then again on the judge's sheet when it talks about the presentation board. So when everybody starts to panic about what goes on the board, you have a lot of leeway as to what you want to put on your board. The reality is no two are going to look alike, nor should they. Does every component that's within your paper and your outline need to be on your board? No. So on mine, this is what I chose. I chose to put on the research problem because I felt I want to explain how the project came about. And then I put this part in because this really I'm going to talk about when I go over my background research. And then I have my hypothesis. I will say every board needs to start. How did you start? What is your hypothesis? I recommend everyone put in your procedure so that we understand how you did your experiment. And then you need to have your data and your conclusions. Those are the only required elements, in my opinion, for a science fair board, mostly because that tells the story. It's like saying that you've got a beginning, a middle, and end, characters. You want all the components. Those are the most important components, in my opinion. Now, if you have every single component, is that okay? Absolutely. We are not competing in a regional science fair where there are rules. We get to kind of make our own. So it's okay for you to turn this into your own creation. So with this, let me just show you. So I took my research problem straight from my plan, or my paper, I guess at that point. We were researching paper towels. So I put each one of these, I'll see if I can get closer, is a little snippet of one of the paper towel brands that we tested so that you could see the embossing, which I will talk about in the presentation. And then I wrote up my hypothesis. On the other side over here, I printed out the procedures and the materials. And then I have my conclusion, which this also is straight out of my paper. If your conclusion is longer than one page, feel free to just pull out the main bullet points. Like, what are the 1 or 2 or 3 main things you want people to know? Within your conclusion, make sure you have answered, is your hypothesis correct? Because that's one of the main components the judges will be looking for, is do you go back and relate it to your hypothesis? And then I put on there, like what I would do next time and what I learned. And then, of course, we have all of our information from our paper towels, which, by the way, for anyone who was wondering, our hypothesis was that Bounty paper towels are the most absorbent, and our hypothesis was correct. And as a matter of fact, if you look at this is our average. You could see Bounty is the blue on the right, and it far surpassed any of the other brands. So that was a fun experiment to do. All right. I am going to talk you through my presentation. I know you can't see me because I'm holding the phone. However, I'm going to go ahead and read my I say read it. I'm going to present to you what my presentation would look like using this particular board. Hello, my name is Valerie Blaisdell, and thank you for coming to see our Challenge A Science Fair. our class has decided to do a science fair project where we were wondering what paper towel would be most absorbent. I mean, have you ever been in your kitchen and you had a spill and you wondered, oh, I feel like I've gone through a whole roll of paper towels to clean this up. Are you using the best brand? During the time of COVID, there were so many disruptions and we were unable to find some of our favorite brands. When we're at the store looking for paper towels, does it matter if paper towels are from the dollar store or if it's a store brand or if it's one of the big name paper towels such as Brawny or Bounty? I thought it would be interesting to find out, do all paper towel brands absorb well and which one is the most important? In doing our background research, we found out that paper towels were an unexpected discovery. They were discovered by the Scott Company in 1879. They had an entire train car full of toilet paper that had been rolled too thick. Instead of throwing it away, they cut it, and that is what we know today as paper towels. Paper towels wick up water just like a sponge would take water from the floor. There's tiny holes that create surface tension and they trap bubbles. They all absorb the same, however, they do wick differently. Some have air pockets in them. Some have different layers. That's where we get 1-ply and 2-ply paper towels from. And some use different types of adhesive or resin. The creping is what holds the paper towel together. When they make paper towels, it's very thin layers of paper laid on top of each other. The adhesive that they use is important because the more layers you have, the more absorbent it is. And some of the adhesives and resins actually increase absorbency themselves. The embossing are the different types of patterns that you see on paper towels. When you have multiple sheets that are put together, they quilt them. These designs we also found out were important. When we tested or looked at each of our examples, Sparkle, we found, had thirst pockets. They have circles and diamond embossing. Members Mark, which is the Sam's brand, is made up of loose dots. The Publix Everyday brand is embossed as multi-layer rectangular prisms. The Brawny uses circles, triangles, diamonds, and hexagons in their embossing. And then Bounty, we found, has multi-layered diamonds with small circles. Now, Bounty claims to be the quicker picker-upper and the leader in absorbency. But is it really? Well, in our background research, we found that the very design that they used on Bounty actually might lead it to be the most absorbent paper towel. Our hypothesis is that Bounty paper towels are more absorbent than any other brands of paper towels. For our procedure, we began by filling a beaker with 120 milliliters of water. Then we took 12 by 11 sheets of paper towels. If you have the Selecta size, this would be 2 paper towels. We folded them in a specific way because in our background research, we found that layering increased absorbency. We didn't want our folding or lack of folding to cause any kind of discrepancy in our results. We kept the paper towel folded in its special fold, and we allowed it to remain submerged in a beaker for 20 seconds. After those 20 seconds, we pulled it out and we allowed the drops to come off for 10 seconds. Then we moved the paper towel over a cylinder and funnel and we would squeeze the water out and measure in milliliters, the amount of water that was able to be squeezed out of the paper towels. Well, our results were quite amazing. When we looked at our averages, we found that on average, Sparkle absorbed 25 milliliters of water. Members Mark, 41.2 milliliters. Publix, 23 milliliters. Brawny, 41.3 milliliters, and Bounty, 54.8 milliliters of water. What we found was our hypothesis was correct, that Bounty is the most absorbent paper towel. In some cases, double the absorbency. If we were to do this again, what we would do is maybe take a different approach to measuring the absorbency of the paper towel Instead of squeezing out the water and measuring the amount of water that was squeezed out of the paper towel, next time we might measure how much liquid remained in the original container. It'd also be interesting if there was a future study to see if we could confirm that Bounty's claim to be the quicker picker-upper would actually be true. We know it's the most absorbent picker-upper, but we would have to redesign it to test time instead of amount. Thank you so much. We appreciate all the people that helped make this science experiment possible, and for all the parents and students in the class who helped to make our predictions. And we appreciate our judges for the time in listening to our presentation. Thank you. All right, that's it. Now, these were my note cards. Really, it's in a lot of ways a keyword outline. However, I did make sure that I wrote down some specific things I wanted to remember from my background research, some specific questions I wanted to say I asked myself, and then I did write down what our measurements were in case I couldn't easily look at the board. Hopefully, at this point, we know our experiments enough that it's going to be like just talking about it. The big thing is going to be keeping it down to 5 minutes or less. I think that's all. I think you have enough to be able to create your project board, finish all the other ingredients to this equation, and then be able to present it. Please don't forget, in your guide, you know exactly what the judges are looking for from the judges form. Now, just before I leave, I will show you this. This is my daughter's board. It's kind of coming apart now, but this is her board from several years ago that I've just kept. And on her board, if you'll notice, hers is different than mine. I mean, it doesn't have the same things. She has her research question and her hypothesis, and then they had an abstract. There was a few years back, they had abstracts actually in the guide, I believe. In her class, they were required to have an abstract. It is not in the guide anymore. You do not have to have an abstract. If you want to put an abstract on your presentation, put an abstract on your presentation. There is not a right or a wrong, in my opinion. She also has her data. She made a huge data chart. Now, I chose to do something that would be easier to read because that was one of the feedbacks that she got from the judges, that her information was phenomenal, but it would be great to have it easier to read. And then she has her lessons learned and her conclusions. She separated them, her procedures, her materials, and then her different pictures of her doing the experiment. And we had to use an app, so she put the pictures of the apps on there. It was a great project. She actually came in second place because her data was phenomenal. What moved her to second place from first place was her presentation, because sometimes you can lead a horse to water and you can't make them drink. So practice your presentation, because the practicing of the presentation to make it fluid is going to be the difference between a good project and a phenomenal project. All right. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks so much. Bye.